Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Business in Calgary podcast powered by Sonic Coaching. And I'm your host, Oliver Basner. So, got a very interesting guest today with an extensive career. And, I'm going to just introduce him here for you. It's Michael Noble, who's the owner, chef and owner of the Nash and Notable Restaurants here in Calgary. And he's got some exciting news that he's going to share about Notable with us as well. So a little bit of rebranding went on over the last few weeks. So probably longer than that, but we heard about it probably in mid-June, did we?
Well, mid-June, and I was probably thinking about it for pretty close to a couple of years.
There we go. So I want to hear all about that. And I know our listeners will. So, but before we even do that, so just want to go through your career a little bit, right? You've had quite the career over your last 3 decades, and so. You worked in Europe, you've been at some major hotel chains that we would all recognize, right? You were head of product development at a national restaurant chain here in the country.
Yes.
You were voted Calgary's best chef 2 years in a row, just a few years back. And you even competed in Iron Chef Japan. So there's a lot going on there. So let's start with, how'd you get started? Like, where did that passion for cooking come from? When did it start?
Well, first of all, it's great to be here, Oliver.
Thank you.
To chat with you.
Great to have you.
And yeah, it all started I'm actually 46 years in the industry.
Wow.
And it really actually started in high school. I was very athletically inclined.
Right.
And I still am. I still love sports. I still love competition. I still love, I just love all that stuff. And, when I was in, probably my last couple of years of high school, I really realized that academic subjects were not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I couldn't do them, but I like to be on my feet and I like to be active.
And hands-on probably a little bit too, I'm guessing.
Hands-on, and my partner Brenda would confirm this. Like if I sit down even to watch like a high action movie,
yes,
I tend to fall asleep. So my resting heart rate is under 50 beats per minute. So somehow I just found the culinary
mm-hmm.
profession, and really, there's not a lot of background in my family from a culinary perspective, but as a young boy, even in the summertime, I like to bake stuff in my mom's kitchen and make waffles on the weekend and pancakes the next weekend, and I was quite fascinated by that whole process of leavening.
I'm sure they appreciated that too, right?
Yeah, until they stepped on the scale, probably. But even in high school, I took foods and nutrition.
Okay.
And, I thought, well, I should learn how to cook, because one day I'm not going to be at home having delicious meals made by my mom. And
mm-hmm.
so I took foods and nutrition, and there was one lab one day where we actually did a formal making waffles. And the teacher was explaining about how to fold in the egg whites, just
right.
Not overly folded. You should see little specks of egg white in there. And I'd already been making waffles, but I'd never thought about it in that realm.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my God, I got a perfect score on those waffles. I guess I'd had some practice previous, but it just lit this fire in me. And by the end of high school, I was like, well, I'm just going to go and do culinary school, which in 1980 was not really a cool thing to do.
No, it wasn't. I remember that because we're similar in age, right? So.
Yes. I mean, nowadays, culinary school is really a novel thing to go and experience. Back then, I think I was the only person in my class that wasn't on unemployment insurance while going to culinary school.
Wow.
Yeah. So, the career just kind of blossomed.
Okay.
I got out of culinary school. I got a job in the banquet kitchen at the Hotel Vancouver, which was a CN hotel back in the early 80s.
Right, I remember that.
And eventually got into an apprenticeship and started to work all the different stations and all the different restaurants in this big hotel operation, and sort of discovered, wow, I can be part of a team here. And then I met the first mentor in my career, a Swiss man named Ben Weber, who really, whatever he saw in me, he saw the sparkle of this young man, I should teach him.
Saw the fire, right?
I think he saw the fire. He saw that competitive thing, and he just kind of took me under his wing. And Ben really taught me how to cook. He'd take me over on the stove and he'd teach me how to make all these different sauces for what was then the Timber Club in the Hotel Vancouver. And it was just fascinating to watch, like, just the feel. And he's talking to me about bringing some tannins into this game sauce and reducing the fish, the beurre blanc, just this certain way, and
Right.
what Montaigne with butter means, really. And I got to taste what he was showing me, which really is what culinary is all about. It's all about doing.
Right.
You can't really, you can understand a sauce, but until you actually touch it and make it and watch it, you haven't really learned it yet. And yeah, from there it just went on and on and on.
And your passion, I could still tell, even to this day, the passion comes through that you have for this profession, you know, even as I hear you speak right now. So, you know, when did you decide to take that passion and become a restaurateur, to actually own your own restaurant? What made that decision happen for you?
Well, you know, there were a few stops along through my career. You know, even when I was doing my apprenticeship, I was driving through Vancouver one day, and the chef of the Hotel Vancouver pulled up beside me in this beautiful Porsche. And he had his little leather driving gloves on. He was an Austrian man,
Right.
Gerhard Pichler.
Yeah.
And I kind of looked at him and I was like, wow, I'd like to be like that one day. You know, super successful, running this big hotel. You know, that kind of planted a seed. And then I think the next moment was in late 1986, when I got a job working for my second chef mentor, Bruno Marty, at La Belle Auberge restaurant in Ladner, BC, which is about 30 kilometers south of downtown, close to the ferry terminal to Victoria. Bruno ran his La Belle Auberge for over 30 years. And just the gift of working in his kitchen, where oftentimes it was just he and I. And we really became, we're still great friends to this day. Bruno's still involved in so many culinary things at the age of 85.
That's fabulous.
And just this year was recognized with the Order of Canada.
Right.
And the Order of Canada was significant in that it recognized Bruno Marty as a chef mentor. And that's what he did. He took all these young chefs, there's so many out there, and he just took them under his wing, and he taught them how to run a restaurant, like how to be a restaurateur. And I think that was where the seed got planted even deeper for me. And of course, over all of those years of working for other people, I learned a lot. But I think I also got to a point where I had this black and white moment of, I think I'm really done working for other people. I think I'm done having to negotiate what I really believe in and try to convince people that this is the way to go. And, you know, I think my last foray in all of that was the 2 years working for Earl's Restaurants Limited as Director of Culinary and Product Development, where, you know, I got to create dishes. I got to be inside this big successful company. I got to see how successful they are at this large scale, but to also realize that it really comes down to just having the right people in the right place in your company.
Right.
And yeah, I got to the point where I I think after 2 years I kind of hit a wall there. And I think I really missed working in the restaurant during service, full of people and so on. And I also, I think, had a really black and white realization of the only thing stopping me from opening my own restaurant at this point in my life was fear.
Right.
And I just realized, like, I gotta jump over that hurdle called fear.
Right.
And also, you know, knowing that I didn't have a great amount of wealth accumulated, that if I was going to open a restaurant, I was going to have to figure out how to finance it.
So there was no backup plan, so to speak.
There was no backup plan. In fact, we were pretty deep into our home equity
Right.
by the time Notable opened. But I've always kind of used that not as a, oh my God, I freeze up because I'm afraid. It's actually motivation.
Right.
Because when you put like everything on the line in that moment, what other motivation do you actually need?
Yeah, failure is not an option,
It's
right?
it's absolutely not an option. Even though a lot of my colleagues thought I was pretty crazy opening Notable where it is.
Right.
And I had to just look at them and say, thank you for your feedback. And I would actually say to them, well, I'm either really right or I'm really wrong. And if I was a gambling man, I would put my money on right.
Well,
I
and
think-
it's still there, it's still around, and
Yeah, we're going to be 15 years
Wow.
in about 2 weeks
I guess you were really right.
since it opened. And yeah, what a journey.
So something you said, I tweaked me earlier, you know, and I'm kind of thinking about our listeners who are looking to make that jump or have made that jump into business ownership, right? And same as you, they have a passion and they want to maybe not take orders from everybody else and being able to sort of use their own, you know, uniqueness and their own creativity and all of that, no matter what the industry.
Yeah,
But you mentioned mentors along the way.
yeah.
You know, and you know, as you know, Sonic Coaching, we do coaching, so mentoring, coaching. How important has that been in your success over the years?
I think it's been everything in my
Okay.
success. In fact, I am now a mentor.
Good. That's
I
awesome.
am so proud of this long list of amazing chefs out in the industry, really across the world,
Right.
who have worked beside me in my kitchens over all of these decades. And one of the biggest pieces of advice I give young culinarians that are looking for, like, how do I become a chef? Find a mentor. Find someone that you can go to, because it's easy to be mentored when everything's going well.
Yes.
It's much harder to go to a mentor when one is troubled.
Mm-hmm.
There were certain crossroads in my career where, you know, I had 3 children and I was making $36,000 a year, and I don't know how we actually did all that, but you know, I felt like I was performing at a level much higher than my compensation grade, and I was pretty discouraged. Like,
Of course.
I was like, well, I went to Bruno Marty one day and I said, Bruno, I think I'm gonna just pack it in. I'm gonna become a culinary instructor so I can spend some time with my kids
Right.
while they're growing up. I feel like I'm spending so much time at work, in the kitchens, making things happen, but I'm missing so much at home.
Right.
And you know, he had some really wise things to say to me in that moment, but he also encouraged me to not give up. He said, Michael, keep going. We need great culinarians in this industry, and if all of you become culinary instructors, there won't be anyone working in the restaurants that can teach.
Right.
And that brought me right back to Bernard Weber teaching me how to make sauces, which is something that I've done so many times over the years, just channeling
Mm-hmm.
these great mentors of mine. And I really don't know how I could have been successful without that level of mentorship.
Mentorship. And it sounds like you're paying it forward too.
Oh, without hesitation. I mean, I think that is really the legacy that I want to be known for, is
Right.
not just what I did or what successes that I enjoyed, because they're always fleeting.
Right.
You're only as good as the last meal you put out, right?
And even that might not get you a 5-star on Google, right? So,
That's true. I've gotten a thick skin over the years. But I think the legacy is more about the people,
right.
because it is a people business. We just happen to serve food and beverage.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
And I would also say, Oliver, that when I decided to open a restaurant, then I needed a new type of business mentorship, and that was, how the heck do I raise all this money I need to build a restaurant from the ground up? You know, it was a very daunting
Mm-hmm.
thought when I first said, okay, I'm going to do this, and then found a space to do it in. But having sort of put pen to paper and figured out like how many hundreds of thousands of dollars
Right.
I required to get the place open, how could I possibly do that? Because I knew how to run the business of a kitchen, but I didn't really understand how to put a business together. And I
Right.
had a couple of really amazing mentors who are still mentors to this day in the
Right.
business realm to help guide me.
The
And
business of the business, so to speak, right?
yes, and to do it in a way that I wasn't just, a de facto owner with really no share of the business. What was important to me was that all of the energy I was going to put into a business, I was going to also realize something on the end of the day on the profit line as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that I was able to do that. And it's another thing I tell young chefs who are wanting to open restaurants or maybe open another one. I always tell them, don't undervalue what you're going to bring to that restaurant. Because you could have the most beautiful restaurant in the world, and if you don't have the right people, it's not going to be successful. You need, you need to value your leadership, your skill, your experience, and all that. It's worth millions.
Yeah, you're singing off my song sheet because I've said this to many of my clients over the years, right? You can have the best strategy, the best processes, even the best product in many cases. Or you put out some great products in your restaurant, some great meals, right? I've been to both of them,
Thank
and
you.
you can have the best marketing plan, but if you don't have the right people on board, you're not getting there.
No, absolutely. Again, because it's a people business. And even though when guests come to a restaurant, I think when it's running really seamlessly, they hardly notice the people. Because if the people are, if the employees are doing what they should be, it becomes a very seamless experience.
Right,
And
like a symphony almost, right?
yeah, it's a symphony. Like there's nothing more thrilling than a Friday night dinner service where everyone is on their game, ready to go. Mise en place is there. The charcoal is just the right temperature. The prime rib is perfectly cooked. And then it's just like, it's a magic 3 or 4 hours of symphony.
Right.
And to the point that sometimes, when guests question why are the menu prices so expensive, I think they don't actually notice all of the people it takes to run a restaurant, which realistically doesn't produce anywhere close to the revenue of other companies which may have that many employees.
Or even margins, because
Oh.
I know the margins in the business, right? So
They've gotten much worse since the
Right.
pandemic ended, believe me.
food cost is up, all costs are up.
Everything.
Wage costs are up. I mean, I'm hearing it from some of your competitors as well, right? The
Yes.
margins are getting squeezed, and you have to, you can't have that food waste. You got to
Oh.
be careful on that side, and there's just a lot of things you've got to balance to make sure you're still profitable and viable at the end of the day.
It's very relentless.
Right.
And even our delivery costs run us around $2,000 per restaurant per month. Just to have product delivered that we're
Right.
paying for.
Right.
Like a lot of those changes have happened over the last decade.
Absolutely.
I have never for a moment said that running a restaurant was easy. But
Well-
I can tell you right now, it's a lot harder than it used to be.
And has always been known as having one of the largest failure rates. So let's go into. I can't wait to talk about the new rebranding of Notable. So
Yes.
let's share with our listeners what that's all about. I mean, I know a little bit about it, but
Yes.
I want to hear your perspective. What drove it? What's new and exciting? What can they expect when they walk in?
Well, as I said, I was thinking about Notable probably for the last couple of years.
Right.
On August 6th, which is a couple of weeks from now, we will hit the 15-year mark. And the thing about restaurants is that when they first open, they are the shiny object. And everybody comes to check you out.
Yes.
And you better be on top of your game in that moment.
Day one, right?
But also all your equipment is working perfectly, everything is great, you haven't had to replace fridges, stoves, rotisserie motors, like you name it. Like I run somewhere in the $125,000 a year mark in just repair and maintenance of the restaurant. And we've had this phenomena over the last 10 years of, well, I think the pandemic changed a lot in society. And what's really happened since the pandemic ended is revenues have kind of flattened out. We can no longer keep charging more for a plate of food,
Right.
because the risk you run then is you might make more per plate, but suddenly you have way less customers. You have way less guests in the restaurant, and that math doesn't work. So especially as a restaurant hits 15 years, I think it's almost guaranteed it's in this sort of flat revenue
Right.
land. And then the costs are going up. So where those two things intersect, it's a little uncomfortable. We have at Notable over 50 employees. We have a full benefits plan. Like, there's a lot of things that we've implemented because it matters.
To
Because
take
our
care of your
people matter.
people, right? Yeah.
That simple. But with the rising costs since the pandemic, and next year I have a lease which is ending as well. So there's a lot of decisions to be made this year. And, as I turn 64 years old this October, even more questions, right? Like, where do I want this to go in the next 5 years? And never have I for a minute felt like I just want it to be status quo. I want to just keep doing the same old thing I've been doing for 15 years. Chefs are not really wired that way.
It's true.
And as a businessman, I'm also wired to always be hungry, looking for, what can I do that's going to give this a boost? What can I do that's going to give it new energy? What can I do, especially in the restaurant market, to get people talking about Notable again? I mean, we had so many regular guests over these 15 years. And certainly we haven't been doing badly as a business. However, I'm always game to add another layer and probably attract some of the people back who were regular guests 10 years ago, but then kind of drifted off to the new places.
The new shiny, right?
Well, there's always new shiny in the restaurant industry.
Right.
And, so it's just keeping current, keeping top of mind for people. So for the last 18 to 24 months, I think in the back of my mind, I was just noodling about what can I do with this restaurant to give it a boost. And there was a couple of conversations that happened with a couple of the local food influencers and so on. And,
Right.
one of the magazine awards, I've always wondered, why is Notable not in the top steakhouse listing? When I look at the other restaurants that are on the list, and I know how well we've grilled so many different meats, from
Yep.
steaks to fish to bison, you name it, lamb, over all these 15 years, over live fire. I just felt geez, we qualify as a steakhouse as well. But after this conversation, I was like, well, why don't I just clarify and become a steakhouse? And so I decided that on Monday over coffee. On Wednesday, I met with my management team and I said, guys, we're going to become Notable the Steakhouse. And I felt this boost of energy around the table.
Excellent.
And because I'm also a visionary, I was able to just kind of lay it out on the table what it was going to be, and that we weren't going to give up on all of the Notable favorite dishes.
I was just going to ask you,
years.
what about those gourmet comfort foods that we're used to from Notable?
Well, the rotisserie chicken is still very much there. One of the favorite salads is the rotisserie chicken Greek salad. The crispy potato rolls. I just managed to work in all of the top Notable favorite dishes.
Right.
I mean, I can't please everyone. But as a chef, I'd also never run a restaurant where I had 3 different layers of steak options. So on the high end, we have this 30 to 45 day dry age program that we're collaborating with the Angry French Butcher Man, who's down by Chinook Center. He's selecting The best cuts for us, we're dry aging on the bone. We do all of our butchery and portioning in-house. So that's been really like fun to sort of watch the evolution of beef as
Right.
it dry ages.
Yeah.
And then we've got this beautiful Canada Prime program with nice thick ribeyes and strip line steaks. And, and then what we've always done is sort of the premium level of the AAA,
Right.
the CAB. So we're doing that, but a steakhouse is much more, I think, than just some steak. I think it's about the vegetables you serve, the potato options, for appetizers and so on. Like, I love a really good shrimp cocktail. And so that's what we're doing. But we're also teaching young cooks how to make a short stock to properly cook shrimp and lobster in. So a lot of these young cooks at Notable, they'd never done poached shrimp before. So it's another skill that we're teaching. I've been teaching some young culinarians how to make lobster bisque, which is something that I learned from my mentor Bruno Marty.
Right.
So again, here it's paying it forward again, and I love a great lobster bisque. We have this gorgeous French onion soup on the menu, which I think is going to work beautifully in the midwinter.
You know, it's interesting. I noticed that on your menu when I had a look, and that is absolutely my daughter's favorite food, no matter what restaurant I take her to, if French onion soup's on there.
Oh,
and I
yeah.
was thinking right away, she hasn't had a good French onion soup like you probably make it. So we're heading over there. That's a commitment I'm
Fantastic.
making to bring her out for dinner there.
And then we've just stayed true to what Notable is, which
Yeah.
is gourmet comfort for me is we make absolutely everything in-house.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the burger, we make the burger bun, we make the patties, we make the sauces, the pickles,
Even the bun.
everything.
Wow.
We make all the desserts in-house, we make all the sauces, again,
Yeah. Back
taught
to the
by
sauces.
Ben Weber.
Right.
I think we're one of the few restaurants still in the city that actually make the full reduction of veal stock down to a beautiful red wine demi-glace,
Mm-hmm.
and then make secondary sauces out of that. So if you have the peppercorn sauce on a Notable steak, you're getting peppercorn sauce that was taught to me by my chef mentor 30 something years ago.
Not something stirred up with a little bit of a package help, right?
Never.
So, yeah.
Never. And I think when one leaves the restaurant, I think when you've eaten food that's all prepared in-house, that has nothing stabilizing,
Right.
nothing thickening, like nothing manipulating the food,
Mm-hmm.
I always find that I feel really quite healthy.
Yeah, it's
At
real
the end of
food,
all that.
right? It's real
Yeah.
food. Awesome.
Absolutely.
You know, as we're getting towards the end of our time, there's a couple of sort of signature questions that I always like to ask, and one of them is, and we've already talked about how difficult it can be to be in the restaurant business, but think about one of those tough times that you had, and maybe for our listeners' benefit, like how do you get through those tough times? What did you do?
Well, for myself, it was always quite obvious what I needed to do. Being uber competitive that I am,
Mm-hmm.
I've just always had the ability to just keep going. And I think because my mentor has always reassured me that if you keep going, like don't lose hope, keep going, you'll get there. And it was amazing when I doubled down and just not stubbornly, blindly kept going, but got aware and got sort of in touch with how I was feeling. And is this really the right thing for me? Is this the job I should still be in, or should I move on?
Yeah.
I think by asking myself a lot of questions, but also never giving up,
Yeah.
that's allowed me to realize so many amazing experiences in my career.
Awesome. Well, that's a good answer, actually, because we've probably got some younger listeners who are going, well, how do I get through this tough time, right? The little voice in our head doesn't help us, right? It hinders us usually.
Yeah, and I think in the age of social media, it's that much harder for all these young people
Mm-hmm.
because they get to look on their social media at what all their friends are doing, or they get to look at, oh, look at all these amazing places. Like generally the younger generation lacks patience right now.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of want to get there quickly,
Attention span is much shorter.
especially in my industry. it's critical to really learn the basis of everything that a great chef needs to know.
Right.
to
Because it
be a
doesn't
great
happen
chef.
in 2 years, right?
That's it. It doesn't happen in 2 years. And yes, there may be an opportunity in 2 years for a young culinarian, but the chances of them being successful in that is really decreased by the lack of sort of hands-on experience and that touch and feel
Foundation,
of
right?
the foundation of knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other question I had for you is what do you wish somebody would have told you at the beginning of this journey? Like somebody who's starting out like right now, what do you think that advice would be that you wish you would have had?
Well, that is a good question. And in all honesty, like I've always been super clear in my life about where I'm going. And then suddenly here I am in my 60s. And I wish that I would have had a mentor 10 years ago that would have said to me, Michael, are you thinking about the exit plan? Because we can't work forever. And
Even if we love it and want to, right?
I do love it, but what I've found in the last 3 or 4 years is that my body is actually starting to break down from 46 years on my feet, how many kilometers every day on these hard tile floors,
Right.
and the pressure. And I got a knee replacement about a year and a half ago. Every other joint in my lower extremities is like quite arthritic. And I guess, and you might say, well, what do you mean how to have an exit plan? Well, if you create a successful business, I think in looking back, there's always a time and place where it peaks. And the last thing on my mind in that moment was probably, well, I should probably look at selling it
Right.
while it's on top,
Well, it's on a high.
because inevitably every restaurant becomes like the old Volkswagen where, it gets a little rusty and the lug nuts start falling off the wheels, and
Yeah.
you maybe need a new engine. And unfortunately in my industry, by the time you get to that point, you don't even have the cash flow to, like, I totally know I'd like to change a lot at Notable, like from a guest feeling, upholstery, restuff everything, make it feel as grand as what the menu and the food is. But the cash flow actually
There's
isn't there.
limitations. Yeah, there's limitations.
Isn't there. And
Yeah.
so really, like, if I could have had that mentor that said, you're doing really awesome right now, but have you thought about where you're going to be 8-10 years down
Right.
the road? That probably would have been an awesome question to sort of ponder. Would I be anywhere different right now? I'm not sure, because when I really look at everything I've had over these 15 years of running Notable, I have nothing but gratitude for all the experiences that I've had through it, and
Right.
all the amazing people that been able to do it with and beside.
Awesome. That I've asked that question a lot of times from some of our past guests, and that's the first time anybody said that. So
Is that right?
thanks for sharing that. That is some great advice to somebody. Start looking at the end before you even really need to think about the end.
Yeah, don't imagine you're always going to feel
Live-
young
And live forever,
and live forever.
right?
Because at a certain point, I mean, I guess now I get to choose how much I work.
Absolutely.
At least I have that.
It's now that you've gotten everybody who's listening salivating, hungry, right, wanting to probably go and try one of those great steaks that you make. So, favorite dish, just as we close up.
Oh, for myself?
Yes.
Nothing like a great steak, actually.
What cut?
It depends what mood I'm in, but typically a nice thick 12 to 14 ounce strip loin of beef is one of my favorite things. On the note of steakhouse, every time I travel, I look for the best steakhouse in the top American cities or
Right.
Toronto or wherever I'm going. And it's because I really love a good steak.
Awesome. So there you have it. The great chef loves great steaks. So You've been listening to the Business in Calgary podcast powered by Sonic Coaching, and we've been talking to Michael Noble. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining us. And, he's the owner of the Nash, the new Notable Steakhouse.
The steakhouse.
The
yes.
steakhouse. And so thanks for sharing those nuggets of wisdom, and continued success to you.
My absolute pleasure. It was great chatting with you today.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.